SketchUp for iPad reads PDFs remarkably well. I'll show you how. The menu in the top left-hand corner here, you open and go to Import. From Import, this brings up an option of bringing in anything from your iPad. I happen to be in my Topographic Survey file already, and so all I need to do is find the particular topographic survey that I want to bring in. So in order to bring in a topographic survey, all I do is touch it. Demo Topographic. That's the one I want to bring in here. Now, it comes in like this. You can see it's already been brought into SketchUp. SketchUp's already reading it because it's appeared in this thumbnail, but it's not yet imported into the SketchUp project itself. The first thing that I do is actually reduce the resolution because I want to keep the amount of memory being brought into this model to a minimum. And so I'm going to turn it down to 72 ppi because no one's ever going to see this apart from me. I'm not printing out this PDF. This PDF is simply going to act as a background to my work when designing on this survey. The next thing I need to do is to scale it. Let me just show you what this survey looks like. This is the full extent of the survey, which we're currently looking at in Morpholio Trace, which reads these PDFs very well. You can see that this is the detail of the PDF here, but the important thing is that if we go to the title block here, we can see that the scale is 1 to 100 at A1. SketchUp will read this. SketchUp will understand this, providing we give it the information 1 to 100. That's actually all we need to do. But the other thing is that there will be a point of reference, this scale bar here, 0 to 20 meters, which we must check once it's been brought into SketchUp as well, to make sure that everything has worked properly. Now, the first thing we need to do, of course, is to scale it. Currently, it says full size 1 to 1, which we don't want. We want 1 to 100. And so to do that, we need to bring up a menu. It's hidden behind this little arrow here. I touch it like so, and it brings up this sliding scale, which starts with imperial measurements. SketchUp, of course, is an American invention, and so we need to go through a lot of feet and inches before we get to metric. This is slightly tricky. You'll notice that my pen has got right to the top of the screen here, and I've got nowhere further to go, and it's snapped to 1 inch to 100, 1 to 1200. We don't want that, so we need to go on scrolling. And so this is a slightly awkward thing for people like me who work metrically, that we need to go on and on scrolling until we get to 1 to 100 metric. And now it is. So it's now set to scale, and all I need now to do is to import it. So I touch Import. It's now come in. It really is as simple as that. I've brought in this survey at 1 to 100, which SketchUp is now reading to scale. Now, another thing which I'm going to do to SketchUp, it comes in naturally with this grey background. I'm going to change the background, and I do that by going into Styles. And from Styles, you can see I can go to Background Settings. There's a whole list under Styles of different options, but it's background settings that we want. And I want to change the background to a white background like so. And that's just so much clearer and easier to read. The next thing I need to do before doing any work on this survey at all is to check that it has scaled correctly. We do have here a scale bar, 0 to 10 meters and then 10 meters on to 20 meters. And so I simply need to measure that. The easiest way to do that is to bring in the tape measure tool and to use the tape measure tool as a construction guide. Now, the easiest way to use the tape measure as a construction guide is to just flick along the edge of this PDF, a little flick, and that will produce this line of infinite length. You can see it disappearing off into the background. Now, the easiest way to use the tape measure as a construction guide is to just flick along the edge of this PDF. A little flick like so will produce this line of infinite length, which we can then drag across to our starting point. I'm going close, but not actually up to the beginning of this scale bar, which I want to measure, because at the moment nothing is clickable. It's important to realize that when working with a PDF, we're not dealing with a clickable entity in the same way as we are with a DWG. We can make it clickable, but we need to trace it in order to do so. And so I've brought that line close enough that I can now zoom in and then with much more care move that construction line up to that point, and I can then delete that. Now, if it's to scale, it should be the case that if I simply send a construction line on its way to 20 meters, that it will simply arrive at that point. Let's see if it does. So I move this construction line along. I've simply set it in motion. That's all I've done. I've set it in motion, and now I enter the number 20,000, so that's 20,000 millimeters, 20 meters. I press enter, and sure enough, it's gone precisely to that point. That means that SketchUp is now reading this model correctly. Now that these construction lines are in place, you might like to simply draw a rectangle between these what are now snappable lines as a reference for yourself. That is 20 meters, and it's quite useful to have that as a reference guide within SketchUp itself. And of course, we can always divide that into 10 meters and then subsequent divisions accordingly. So that is simply a reference point outside of this topographic survey, just to prove to ourselves that we are working to scale. Let me just show you that again, that now we have a clickable entity. I can choose the dimensions tool and click on that point and click on that point, and sure enough, it says 20,000 mil. It's always a very good idea to check this, and to check it very carefully right from the off, because this scaling of this PDF is what we will base our entire project's work on. And if inadvertently we'd entered 20 with 2 zeros rather than 3 zeros after it, we would have a problem, because of course we'd be designing everything at 1/10 of the size that it was meant to be. So we now have a scaled PDF, good to go, ready to start working on. And I'll show you how I work on this PDF in the next video.